Silence is golden. Meditation matters. By Angelo. Chapter 7. Yoga. Quote, "You owe it to yourself to be yourself." Close quote. That's by Yogi Bhajan. The yourself that Yogi Bhajan is referring to here is not the personal self, but is instead consciousness. We owe it to consciousness to be consciousness. Yoga is another inheritance from the Vedic tradition. There is so much more to yoga than our usual understanding of postures, breath control, classes and yoga mats. Yoga is another Sanskrit word, and this one means union. It is a group of physical, mental and spiritual disciplines intended to bring about union with consciousness. It is important to bear this in mind when considering whether to include yoga as part of our practice. The clue is in the meaning of the word. There are various different types of yoga, but they all have the same objective. I will give a short description of each of the disciplines, but there's much more to learn if we have the inclination. Hatha yoga is perhaps the best known modern version of yoga and mainly comprises a series of postures known as asanas and breath control disciplines called pranayama. The word hatha itself means force, so this form of yoga is physical in nature, but the objective is always union with consciousness. A simple interpretation of hatha yoga would be that the postures and breath control practices reduce stress in the body and nervous system, and hence prepare for the possibility of higher vibrations of consciousness. In this respect there are similarities with TM, but we are not really going to transcend the personal mind simply by attending yoga classes. These practices are helpful and preparatory, but are highly unlikely to work in isolation. Kundalini yoga uses similar techniques and is centered on awakening the Kundalini energy, which is often symbolized as a coiled serpent at the base of the spine. Kundalini as a word refers to the latent female energy, Shakti, said to be located in the Muladhara or root chakra. This energy is considered to be dormant until it is activated. The practices include asanas and pranayama as above, but also use mantra chanting and specific forms of meditation to activate the Shakti. Once again, all of this can simply be seen as a raising of the vibration of consciousness within the nervous system. Jnana yoga is the path of study and knowledge in order to attain moksha, which means freedom or liberation. The word jnana means knowledge, wisdom or insight. The purpose of jnana yoga is to deepen our understanding of the true nature of reality, which is consciousness. As this wisdom becomes more established, we become increasingly capable of supporting higher vibrations. Jnana yoga includes self-contemplation as a key practice, but the discipline also involves studying scripture and other wisdom-based literature in order to absorb understanding. One might say that reading this book falls into the category of jnana yoga. Wisdom is available from many sources. Karma yoga is the practice of selfless action for the benefit of others. Again, the objective is moksha, but this discipline is focused outwards rather than inwards. The word karma means the relationship between a person's physical or mental action and the resulting consequences. In other words, karma is all about cause and effect. We will look into how and why this is true in a later chapter, but for now we are focused on the actual practice. The key tenet of karma yoga is to be selfless. This obviously seems a very different approach to the practice of hatha yoga, but actually the objectives are identical. The biggest barrier to experiencing higher vibrations of consciousness is our Velcro-like attachment to the identity of being a separate personal body-mind. We are completely attached to the belief that we are a wave on the surface, rather than being the ocean of consciousness. The whole point of being selfless is to forget about being our old self. If we keep worrying about our personal lives, then we're going to remain stuck in a low vibration of consciousness. This is so obvious, yet so often misunderstood. We can make seeming progress through other disciplines, but undo all of the good work by continuing to think and behave selfishly. One step forward, immediately followed by one or even two steps backward. Karma yoga is essential if we are ever going to experience moksha. We will never enjoy the depths of the ocean if we insist on remaining on the surface. Bhakti yoga is the discipline of loving devotion. The word bhakti means deep affection, so we're not talking about superficial faith or worship, but rather a profound reverence for consciousness. Bhakti yoga is often directed towards a specific deity or avatar, but such words or objects are only ever conceptual substitutes for the single universal consciousness. The more sincere and intense the devotion, the more powerful the effect. It doesn't really matter who or what we are devoted to. It is all about genuine, loving devotion. Given that the objective of yoga is union, it would be helpful to understand how this particular practice achieves the goal. The answer arises from the qualities of consciousness previously described, and in particular the expression of love. It is impossible to capture the essence of love in a few words, so I'm not even going to try. We all know how it feels. However, the mistake that we often make is to believe that our love is personal. If I believe that I am a wave, then I will naturally believe that my love comes from me. If I love something or somebody, then it is my love that is being expressed. We may believe this, but it is simply not true. Love is a quality of consciousness. It arises from the depths and is expressed through us. There is no such thing as personal love. It is all consciousness loving itself. So the practice of Bhakti Yoga is the surrender of the personal self so that love can flow to the surface and be expressed. As we abide in love, so we abide in consciousness. The final practice to cover here is Raja Yoga, which is also known as Ashtanga Yoga. The word Raja means noble or royal, and the word Ashtanga means 8-limbed. Rather than a single discipline, Raja Yoga comprises 8 integrated practices, all with the same overall objective. The 8 limbs of Raja Yoga are described as follows. 1. Behavioral restraints, yama. 2. Observances such as purity, contentment, austerity and study, niyama. 3. A steady pose, asana. 4. Control of vital energy, pranayama. 5. Withdrawal of the senses, pratyahara. 6. Concentration, dharana. 7. Meditation with eyes open, dhyana. And 8. The state of samadhi, which means dissolution into consciousness. I think we can clearly see why this is often known as royal yoga. These 8 limbs include pretty much everything that we have covered so far. It's also interesting and important to note how all of these practices are intended to be integrated into a single discipline. Whatever form of meditation or other disciplines we may eventually choose to practice, they are all intended to raise our vibration of consciousness in order to ultimately attain the state of samadhi. These are not stand-alone practices. It is a single discipline with multiple component parts. There is so much more to yoga than we may have previously imagined. The meaning is union, and the purpose is not just to gain access to higher states of consciousness, but to actually experientially return to becoming consciousness. As Yogi Bhajan suggests, we owe this to our true selves.